Well, for some more on this, let's speak to someone from Amnesty. David Griffiths is joining us from London. David, good to speak to you. Now, just first of all, how can you be so certain that these weapons have been used, as these areas are so difficult to be accessed?
Well, Darfur is the world's forgotten conflict, and Amnesty International has carried out a research project there this year which has found that the conflict has indeed escalated. We've spoken to a couple of hundred people, both victims and caregivers, and we've corroborated their testimonies carefully with satellite evidence and with forensic analysis of images that we have obtained. And what we have found consistently is a pattern which points to the use of chemical weapons as part of an extremely barbaric onslaught on civilians in the Jebel Mara region of Darfur. We have found evidence of 32 what we believe to be chemical attacks, but that's within the context of a much wider destruction and attack on civilian populations. Villages, 170 villages have been severely damaged or destroyed across the region. We've seen mass rapes, and this is a serious escalation, an unprecedented escalation of the conflict in Darfur, which has been going on since 2004.
Absolutely. Just to press you on this then, David, how are you seeing that chemical weapons are being used from satellite photographs? Obviously, mustard gas is released. And have you been able to see any victims of these weapons and been able to ascertain from them the symptoms and therefore what weapons may have been used on them?
Yeah, as I said, the chemical weapon, the satellite images have been used to corroborate the evidence that we've received by testimony, and that has shown us where the attacks have taken place, where we've clearly seen evidence that structures have been severely damaged or destroyed and villages have been razed to the ground. But it's with the testimony evidence and with the images that we've received that we have seen the evidence of the chemical attacks. The images, when you see them, are horrific. We have seen children with skin sloughed off completely. We've seen terrible lesions. We've seen and heard evidence of people experiencing their eyes going green, their urine turning red or turning green. This is evidence that has been corroborated by almost 200 testimonies across the Jebel Mara region, and it points to a sustained onslaught on the civilian population since the beginning of the year. Let me tell you about one man, Khalil, in his 30s. He told us of a bomb which went off in his village. The three people who were nearest immediately had the four people had their eyes bulging out. He himself experienced paralysis on one side of his body. 2 weeks later, his skin started falling off, his urine went red, and he experienced severe nausea and vomiting. Now, he survived, but 200 people have not been so lucky, and the majority of those have been children. This is extremely barbaric use of banned chemical weapons by the Sudan government on its own people in the Jebel Mara region of Darfur.
Well, with all this evidence, David, what next? Are you going to the ICC? Have you spoken to the Sudanese government? What's the next steps here to try and ensure that this sort of tactic of war is not used by the Sudanese again?
Well, Sudan, in escalating the conflict in this way, has shown utter contempt for the international community, for international norms. It's important to remember that what has happened under the nose of a UN and African Union peacekeeping force, some 21,000 peacekeepers in this region. And, it's not just the chemical weapons. 250,000 people have been displaced. And as I said, 170 villages have been razed to the ground. So what Amnesty International is now calling for is for the Security Council to begin an immediate investigation into the allegations that we are making about chemical weapon usage by the Sudanese government. We're also calling for access for peacekeeping forces into the Jebel Mara region to ensure that this does not happen and that there is a witness on the ground. And we're calling for the arms embargo to be extended across all of Sudan and to be enforced.
OK, well, David Griffiths, I wish you well in your work. Thank you for joining us.